Hi folks, it's James here. How you all doing? I'm going to do a response to Jeff Calico Silver, who's asked 12 questions of people in the vinyl community, and they're good questions. I'm actually going to add 3 questions to the end though, so mine's going to be 15 questions. So just before I start, if you've not subbed to Jeff, check him out. Great channel. He does loads of really good, amazing videos, you know, reviews and think pieces. I suppose you might describe them as. He's a really, really intelligent, lovely guy. He's been on YouTube for a while now, making great videos. So I'll put the link down below. Do check him out if you haven't done already. So, number 1, Jeff wants to know, if your musical hero dies, do you avoid their music or do you play it more? For that one, I can't really answer that either one way or the other. It sort of depends. You know, other people have done responses to this and they've talked about various people. They've talked about Prince, they've talked about Bowie, you know. I mean, I like Prince, I'm quite into Bowie, but I'm not a huge fan of Bowie, you know, not enough to have been devastated when he died. My musical heroes largely are still alive, and there's a handful who, you know, when they do come to go, I know I will be very, very upset. You know, people like Paul McCartney, you know, the guys out of Squeeze. I do remember when I think I was 20 when Freddie Mercury died, and I was pretty upset then. I didn't stop playing his music though. Yeah, interesting question. Like I said, check back with me once I've lost a person who means a lot to me, and I'll let you know. Okay, so number 2, do you wince when a new band puts out an album of covers by your musical hero? I can't think of an example of that, but no, not generally. I quite like covers. I quite like covers which really vastly reinterpret the artist's work. You know, I love the Sparks cover version of I Want to Hold Your Hand by the Beatles. Now, if Sparks were to do a full album of Beatles covers or ABBA covers or something, I would be all over it. But if, say, Duran Duran did a cover version or an album of cover versions of Leonard Cohen songs, I wouldn't rush out to buy that. So it purely depends on who you're talking about, really. Do you like classical or orchestral versions of your favourite pop hits? Not particularly. I was never into, was it just Lou Clark's Hooked on Classic series? Never got into that really. I like classical music. I would I've got a couple of kind of big bandy, jazzy versions of Beatles albums and things like that. I quite like kind of lounge jazz versions of certain things, but no, I wouldn't sit and listen to classical versions of pop and rock songs, really. Should bands who change their lead singer get a new name rather than carrying on under the original name? This depends on the band. It's worked great for some bands. It worked great for AC/DC, although arguably they were never the same again, really. Queen should never have done any post-Freddie work, I don't think. They should never have done Paul Rodgers. They should certainly never have done Adam Lambert. They should have changed their name. You know, it's just ridiculous, the idea that Queen can be Queen as Brian May and Roger Taylor and Adam Lambert. To me, that's like saying you can do the Beatles with Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, and I don't know, it's just some random person, you know, Ronan Keating. I mean, it's just ridiculous, really. So it purely depends on the group. It's worked well for Fleetwood Mac. It's worked well for certain other groups. Other bands, no. So I think with that one, I would need to take it on a case-by-case basis. Right, do you like or listen to bonus tracks or demos on the end of albums? Depends on the artists. Bands and artists who I'm not massively into, but I've you know, I like them. I've got them in the collection. I might not be in a big hurry to listen to the demos and alternate takes and all that kind of stuff. And the second part of Jeff's question is, should they be put onto a separate CD rather than being shoved on the end of an album? I'd say yes, definitely. There's certain records where you definitely do not want extra tracks coming in at the end. The classic example is Band on the Run. You know, you do not want anything coming after 1985 on that album, and I've got the CD version of that which came out back in the day. So you get 1985, which brings the album to this incredible close, and then you get these kind of half-cocked songs on the end. It just does not work at all. Also, Jeff wants to know, number 6, CD box sets where they split the albums across the CDs. I don't like that. That really drives me mad. I've got a CD box set. It's the early Tangerine Dream. No, it's the later period Tangerine Dream. I think it's like 5 albums in one set. And they do that, they split the albums across the discs. It absolutely drives me nuts. I bought this one recently. This is Bill Evans' 1956 to 1962. This one's okay. This one's got, you get 2 albums per CD. What does slightly annoy me is when you look on the track list on the back, it doesn't tell you where one album starts and where the next one, where one album ends and the next one starts, but it does tell you in the CD liner notes, so you can check that. I would describe it as a first world problem, really, not particularly pressing in terms of other problems that we face in the world. Right, number 7. Do you hesitate to read your heroes' autobiographies or biographies for fear of losing respect for them? No, I don't have any fear of that. Having said that, I have read books where I've slightly lost respect. There's one great example, that would be the Keith Richards autobiography, which came out a few years ago. Now, I won't go into details here, and I'd like to say, or I'd like to think, I'm not a terribly moralistic person, but I was genuinely sort of shocked and horrified by certain confessions he made in that book, mainly to do with his parenthood, him being a father, and some of the life choices he made with regards to his son Marlon. I did come away from that book with less of a respect for Keith than I had before, which is a shame, really. Elvis Costello, I've just recently read a biography of him as well by Graham Thompson, and the way he treated his wife, it did make me feel uncomfortable, and it does slightly tarnish the artist's work. I'm a big fan of Costello, and it would be nice to listen to his back catalogue and listen to some of those great kind of, he did some great confessional songs, and I think it did feed into his work, some of these life choices that he made, but it did make for uncomfortable reading at times. So I don't like it when when people treat their wives badly, when they treat their kids badly. It actually affects me. It affects me emotionally, and it just makes me quite angry in a way. Because most of us go through our lives, we don't make great vast fortunes, we don't get to be rock stars, we don't get to fulfill our life's dreams and ambitions, and yet we still manage to live our lives without being complete knobs, and it annoys me when these people who do have everything just handed to them on a plate in a way, they just get to live these incredible lives and they just behave like shits. It does annoy me, but no, it doesn't put me off reading the books. Right, number 8. Do you find yourself acting as an apologist for your heroes when deep down you know that they're not all that great? Yeah, I do sometimes, yeah. There's quite a lot of music I like for nostalgic reasons, and it's very difficult often to separate in my mind how much of my love for a record is pure nostalgia and how much is me objectively thinking the music is great. I mean, it works a lot with artists like Paul McCartney. There's certain records by him that I absolutely love, but I would hesitate to recommend them to people and say, you must listen to this Paul McCartney song, you'll love it, because chances are that person won't love it, because it's actually not all that marvellous. So it does give me problems, actually. I find it hard to rank certain albums because I don't know where to put them. If you take an album like London Town by Wings, I've never known where to put that because I love it, but I can't honestly, hand on heart, say it's a great album. So it messes me up, really. It kind of stops me from being able to, it stops me being objective, I guess. So, again, it's a first world problem. Number 9, do you feel silly as a collector when you have no time to listen to all this stuff that you're buying? No, I don't feel silly, but it does stress me out sometimes. During the lockdown, it has made me aware of just how many records that I've got, because I've been listening to a load of music and trying to catch up, and even listening to, say, 3 or 4 vinyl records a day, which I have been doing, I'm still nowhere near on top of my inbox from 2 years ago, let alone the stuff that I've got on the shelves. So no, I don't feel silly, but it's sort of an issue. Having said that, I think what it's shown me is that it's good to have a big collection because you can dip into it. And a collection, I've never subscribed to this idea that you should only have records in your collection which are big favourites and which and which you think are classics and which you've heard 100 times, because in a way, if you're going to get rid of any records, you might as well get rid of those ones, the ones that you know back to front. What's the point of having those ones? It makes more sense to own records that you haven't listened to yet and that you don't know. all that well, because then your record collection turns into a kind of treasure trove of potential discovery in a way, rather than just a sort of box ticking exercise where you're kind of going, yeah, I've got that record, love it, got that record, love it, got that record, love it. Much better to have a collection where you're kind of pulling things out and going, oh, I completely forgot I had that. I'll have listened to that now. So it sort of cuts both ways, really. Right, number 10. Do you ever get tired of listening to music, and if so, what do you do then? I do sometimes. I kind of max out on it sometimes. I've always been a big reader. I love reading books, so I will always go back to that. I sometimes have to force myself to stop listening to music in the background while I'm reading. When I get into real heavy music addiction and I want to catch up with some reading, I'll often put some jazz on in the background, or something reasonably not very in your face kind of music. And I sometimes think that I shouldn't do that. I should read and then I should listen to music. So I'm kind of working on that. I'm working on that one. So I get tired a bit. I mean, I've got some other interests. I'm really into current affairs and watching kind of news-based things on YouTube. There's a great channel called A Different Bias. This guy called Phil, he's in the east. He's in the east of England, and he does some amazing political commentary videos. And I do find myself trying to unplug from music sometimes and get into some current affairs, because there's a lot going on at the moment. Do you get annoyed by people leaving comments on your channel where it's obvious they haven't watched the video? I don't get a great deal of that. It doesn't particularly annoy me. The sort of comments that annoy me are the sort of totally negative ones, the ones where a person has watched the video and they've just found nothing positive to say about it, and they'll just pick you up on one little mistake that you made. They'll say, oh, I think you'll find that da-da-da-da-da, and they'll kind of pull you up on something, but they won't say, oh, by the way, I enjoyed the video, or anything like that. You get some truly horrible comments like that sometimes. There was a guy recently who, you'd think that I had charged him to watch my videos, in the way he was talking. He said something like, oh, if you must insist on making these kind of videos, you should check your facts. And I kind of said to him, I don't insist on making videos. I'm doing this for a hobby, no one's paying me. I don't have a team of editors going around checking my every fact. Having said that, it does sort of annoy me when I get things wrong. So perhaps that's why I'm a bit sensitive about those kind of comments. Anyway, we all know it. 99% of people who make those kind of comments don't have any content on their channel, so make of that what you will. And do you ever think of quitting YouTube? Not really, no. I do. I think YouTube, and it's another form of social media at the end of the day. And social media comes with certain, not dangers exactly, but you can get sucked in. And it's healthy to cut down on your screen time. And one big issue I've got with the vinyl community is that I've always seen it as a reciprocal space. In other words, if I'm making videos, I've got to be watching them as well and commenting on them. I don't like the idea that I'm making content, but I've tuned out of other people's content. But the problem with that is it becomes incredibly time consuming. There's at least 30 or 40 people who watch my videos who also make content themselves, and I find it very, very difficult, if not impossible, to get around everybody and to try and support everybody. And when that happens, I find myself maxing out. And when I think to myself, I've got no time at the moment to be watching videos, I'll try and pull back then on making my own videos as well, because that's just the way that I kind of view the whole thing, really. Okay, so my extra questions now. So these are my 3 questions. So question 13. When you get into an artist, so you buy an album by an artist and you really like it, and they've got a long history, a back catalogue, and you decide that you're going to check out that catalogue, you're going to explore it, you're going to get to know that band's music. Do you check it out from the beginning, go right back from the start, buy the first album and then start working your way through? Or do you start at the end and then work backwards? Or do you just do it randomly? What's your preference for doing it? My answer to that is generally speaking, I like to start at the beginning and work forwards. It's not always possible. Having said that, there are certain artists in my life that I have checked out backwards, and there's something to be said for that. There's something to be said for doing things in reverse. It's quite interesting. In fact, I'm going to make a video about that at some point, because that can be quite interesting. So forwards, backwards, or just a random hodgepodge. Number 14, do you buy and listen to 5 CD album sets? So I'm talking about this series. This is the Suzanne Vega one, which I've just got. It's the thing where you get like replica albums, and it's just a quick way, and quite a cheap way as well actually, of hearing some records without having to fork out and just hunt down all the vinyl versions. I mean, the one problem with them is that you end up maxing out again. You buy all this music and you just have no time to listen to it. I love them, and I'm going to do a video on them at some point. So 5 CD album sets, do you or don't you? And then number 15, we'll finish with, is there an artist or a band that you avoid or have ever avoided for a silly, immature reason? So it's nothing to do with their music really, there's just some other daft reason why you don't listen to them. So my confession with this one, for me, it's Paul Heaton. And I've never bought anything that Paul Heaton's ever done, never bought any Beautiful South records, never bought any of his solo work, never bought anything. And the reason for that is, a couple of decades ago I saw an interview with him in some music magazine or other, and he was talking about the Beatles, and he described the Beatles as wank. And the interviewer stopped him and said, "What do you mean by that? Do you mean that you genuinely think the Beatles are crap?" And he said, "Yeah, they're just wank." And I just thought to myself, right, okay, wanker, I'm not going to listen to your music. Completely daft, completely stupid, because I don't even know if he was being serious. But that's kind of just a classic example of a sort of knee-jerk thing. I just thought to myself, well, if you don't like the Beatles and you think they're wank, I just don't have any time for you at all. So yeah, I need to get over that one. I need to get some therapy and try and address it, and maybe buy a couple of Paul's albums and stop being a complete jerk. Okay folks, I hope you enjoyed that. So that's Jeff's questions, 12 questions plus 3 of mine. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all soon. Take care, bye bye.